Good afternoon and welcome to Brunch and Budget on Bonfire Radio with your host, Pamela Capallet, a certified financial planner here to help take the bite out of your budget, brunchandbudget.com. I'm your sound provider, Dialect, and here's your host, Pamela Capallet.
Thank you, Dialect. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. So if you are tuning in close to when we uploaded this, you know that the Olympics just finished. I don't know if you all watched it this year.
I mean, technically, as long as they listen to this show within the year, the Olympics just finished.
That's
because
true.
they'll be 3/4 of the way to the next Summer Olympics. So that's still close enough that they know which Olympics they're talking about.
That's
if you're
very
listening
true.
to this in the 2020s, then you'll know that we was talking about former Olympics.
If the Olympics still exist in the 2020s.
What? Wait, why?
I mean, that is what we are going to be talking about today. What is the economic sustainability or lack of sustainability of the Olympics? What has it done to...
But wait, no, the Olympics, they're too big to fail, right? I just wanted to say that because it's a silly term. It means nothing.
Oh my
Nothing's too big to
God.
fail.
Nothing is too big to fail, including the Olympics. And we are going to be talking about, and you may have seen articles about this, a ton of articles come out right around Olympic time about how a host country or how a host city ends up faring during the Olympics, how much it costs to put together the Olympics, and then if that host city actually benefited from hosting an Olympic Games, because the big promise with the Olympics is now your city's on the map, right? Nagano, Japan.
Yeah, now your city, but you know, I don't understand that because your city was already on the map. I mean,
Yeah, but now people know it exists.
But what's that going to do for them? What are you going to do in Nagano? What are you going to do in Nagano? Hey, you listening? What you going to do in Nagano?
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to be talking about that today and how a ton of people, a ton of countries and cities may be backed out of the 2022 Olympics and who's left and what the implications of that are. And how does this affect you, too? I mean, the Olympics are fun to watch, but how does it really affect your wallet? What does it really do for you?
Yeah, because
why should you be against or for the Olympics?
Are the Olympics really a thing in your life? Because it feels like a thing in your lives when it just comes on and it happens. Maybe you have a family member or a friend who's trying to get into the thing, but you really just think of it as a benign thing, right? It's the Olympics.
Absolutely, and it's inspiring.
Oh, a chance to look at a weird sport that I don't normally like.
Right, like way to highlight these impressive athletes who've dedicated their lives to this.
And you know, you think of the people who do it as like they're like good, solid earth, hardworking American kids and all that.
Or from any country, global kids.
Well, yeah. I'm just thinking about our own.
Yeah. Well, and the arcs and the stories and the human condition and all of those kinds of things that come out of it do make for great storytelling.
It's a thing. It's been around so long that they didn't even really need money. They used to do it naked out in
Greece,
Greece,
yeah.
the country, not.
Yes,
we said naked first. I just wanted to make sure.
No one's rolling around in oil or grease or anything like that.
I mean, I think there was that event too.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. So the Olympics are very, very interesting.
If you're a New Yorker and have been in New York, or have been in New York for 15 or so years, you'll remember when we nearly got the Olympics.
Yes, and thank goodness we didn't. Right? We already have enough tourists.
Oh yeah, well I thought we was going to talk about that in a minute, but oh yeah, we have enough tourists, and that's where I got to learn about the deleterious effects of having the Olympics happen where you at.
Yes, and why many cities who have put in a bid for the Olympics, why their citizens have protested. So we'll talk about all that, but first we're going to do a quick investment appetizer. Oh yeah, the investment appetizer today is municipal bonds, or muni bonds for those in the know. And muni bonds are basically, they are debt, because a bond is a debt, an IOU that's issued by an entity. And in this case, muni bonds are issued by states, municipalities, counties to basically fund big public projects. So putting in a new water treatment plant, putting in a new sewage system, building a new school, all of that kind of stuff. Making highways, constructing roads. So the thing with muni bonds that's interesting, a lot of wealthy people really like muni bonds because they are double exempt from taxes.
Double exempt, so that means on both sides?
Well, it means on two levels. It means on the federal level and on the state and local level.
Oh.
Yes. So muni bonds, any interest and any earnings that you get from muni bonds are generally, for most muni bonds, exempt from federal taxes and most state and local taxes. And so it's a great investment vehicle for people who have a lot of money, actually. I worked with a lot of clients who had good portfolios in muni bonds because the other side of muni bonds is they're pretty low risk. Think about it, right? A government is not going to not build that highway. A government is not going to stop building the water treatment plant or the new electrical plant or the new gas plant.
I mean, the big dig up in Boston did take like a million years.
Yeah, but they did it.
Yeah, that's true. It did get completed.
It did get completed, and they were borrowing people's money in the meantime to do it and paying them interest for borrowing it.
Y'all ain't take any muni bonds to make that 2nd Avenue subway line, did you? Because in that case...
They probably did.
They probably did, right?
And maybe they paid it back to you already, and they're still like, shit, it's not done.
Oh, word, right.
Right, because muni bonds also have a term. So you can buy muni bonds for a certain period of time, and then you can rebuy them if you want to let someone reborrow the money, basically. So there's two kinds of muni bonds. There's one that's a general obligation bond, and those are the kinds of things that are done with government entities. They are backed by revenue for a specific project, like toll roads and things like that. And so they are usually backed by property taxes and then being sold through muni bonds, these general obligation bonds. So general obligation bonds are the least risky of the muni bonds because they are backed by government entity. And then there's another kind of bond called a revenue bond. And so this is basically the interest payments are able to be paid through sales, like hotel occupancy taxes, fuel, all of those kinds of things. And like I said, the default risk is usually low, which means bonds don't usually stop paying out. The bond doesn't tend to lose its value. And the other side of this is, I wanted to talk about muni bonds today because stadiums are sometimes funded by muni bonds.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and so what's interesting is I mentioned that muni bonds are mostly tax exempt, but there are some taxable muni bonds where the government or the IRS says, we're not going to subsidize that financial activity. Because basically what happens when you get a muni bond and you get interest is the IRS is not collecting taxes on you, so they're not getting revenue from you making a profit.
Right.
So if you decide you want to fund something like a stadium or something like that, or replenishing like an underfunded pension plan, then the federal government is like, nope, you can't not pay taxes on that.
Well, I was about to ask you, these seem like such a good move. Why aren't they more widespread?
Right, exactly.
Why isn't everybody just doing that?
What, buying muni bonds?
Yeah, like I just want muni. Yeah.
Well, part of it is that it's hard to get into the market unless you have a lot of money. Like, you can't go and buy a muni bond for $100 necessarily.
There is no acorns for
There is no
municipal
acorns
bonds.
for muni bonds right now. There might be a muni bond ETF out there. We could look into that, actually. But muni bonds are really, you actually own the bond itself. And it's one of those things where it is really low risk, but the reward is also pretty low at the same time. So
unless you're putting in ridiculous sums of money.
Yeah, and it's, it'll pay off more than like a savings account. Like last I checked, muni bonds were earning maybe 2-ish%. And, at its height, I remember seeing it earning 4%, which is great when you have $1 million.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But it's not really, if you're trying to invest for the long term because really muni bonds, the way I've seen it used, is for people who are trying to get income, which usually means people who are in retirement or close to retirement. So they're taking the interest and saying, I'm going to use this to live off of.
So what should a new investor think about municipal bonds?
I mean, it's definitely something to consider. So Wealthfront actually does have a muni bond allocation. So you can participate in the growth of like a muni bond ETF. You won't actually necessarily be clipping the interest rate though. So basically the way that it works is you buy an ETF, which is basically like a fund of funds, or it's a fund of like a bunch of municipal bonds that this company is managing. And they are most likely clipping the coupons and collecting the interest and either reinvesting it back into the investment, or they're maybe giving off income and dividends and things like that. But it's really not something that you as an individual investor can get in and just buy individual muni bonds yourself, from what I've seen.
One last beginnery question.
Yeah.
If I am a early-ish investor, when would be the first time I should start thinking about municipal bonds?
I mean, that really depends on how much money you have to invest. As an early investor, and it also depends on what your goals are. So as an early investor, if you're on the young side and you plan to keep the money in there for a while, it probably doesn't really make sense to have muni bonds or to not have a really even big percentage of your portfolio be that.
So you should look into it if you are not a young investor and if you are...
If you are older, yeah. If you're on the older side...
Just if you're older?
Yeah, for the most part,
Older and have a lot of money.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, that's pretty much it. So that was your investment appetizer, municipal bonds. So let's jump right into the Olympics.
Yeah, let's long jump right into the Olympics.
Olympics.
Jumping is not the competition.
Damn it. I could jump really
I won a
long.
bronze medal in jump.
In jumping. That's got to be a thing,
They
right?
didn't actually measure. They just wanted to know I did it. I did it. 2 other people did it also, so they gave me bronze.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, first I want to talk about why countries bid in the first place, and I found this really great quote. And the Olympics are part of things like mega events that they like to call them. Things like the Olympics, the World Cup is another big one where people will build a stadium just to be able to host the World Cup. But the Olympics is probably the most common example of one of these mega events.
Well, because I understand a bit with football because people are really obsessed with their sport teams.
Yeah.
And even more so than we are with American football here, folks in countries around the world are just as excited, if not even more. I mean, the whole soccer hooligans thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the World Cup happens every year. And so, a different city hosts it. And what's funny is Brazil just hosted the World Cup a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. So they built a $300 million arena in the middle of the rainforest that's just kind of sitting there right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was it going to do?
Yeah, well,
what were we going to do afterwards?
Yeah, exactly. The funny thing is, there was an article that mentioned that for the most part, for most of the year, there are about 2,000 people who are interested in watching a football game like that. And who can potentially afford it even,
Well, I mean, that's the thing of having an arena. You look at these sports arenas. Madison Square Garden does so well, not just because of the Knicks and the Rangers, but because they host concerts there all the time.
Yeah, they do all kinds.
And you want to go to Madison Square Garden for a concert. What's funny is a lot of artists don't like to go to Madison Square Garden because it's small for an arena venue.
Right.
So, I mean, when I say a lot of artists, not a lot of artists.
The big artists.
The biggest artists that only like to play in...
stadiums.
I can't stand that, man. I don't know too many folks that I want to see in a stadium because, man, it's just watching you on TV, really.
Yeah,
with other folks.
Exactly.
It's like having a viewing party in your vicinity.
Yeah.
But, no, but cats like that, they don't like to play at MSG because it's more intimate.
Right.
Which makes it a great venue.
It does. Well, and MSG is a great example of a stadium or a venue space that really is multi-use. And that's the biggest problem with the Olympics. But let's talk about why countries actually want to do it. And there was this really interesting quote. This professor named Victor Matheson, one of the things he said was, "It's like a wedding. It won't make you rich, but it may make you happy." There's a lot of countries and a lot of cities who the prestige of hosting the Olympics has been there for a long time, and we talked about this before, just the idea of someone hosting the Olympics and having it make their city mean something, having people know the name of their city, having people feel like it's a destination.
Well, I mean, on the real, casual xenophobia is often based in competitiveness.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't just dislike other countries. You're better than other countries.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what the Olympics is how many gold medals was your country able to get, And what's interesting is there's a lot of cities who look to the Barcelona Olympics in 1992, which was probably the most successful Olympics financially in terms of long-term. It actually put Barcelona on the map. It made people want to visit it. Their tourism was up for the next 5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I figured Barcelona was already Barcelona, and you wanted to go because you could chill in Spain.
It actually wasn't. In 1992, it was very poor. It was very impoverished. And the Olympics actually brought brought to attention a lot of the great places to visit in Barcelona, a lot of the culture there, a lot of the great cuisine, all of that kind of stuff. Actually, the Olympics brought it to light.
There was a lot of good coverage that year. I really, as you say that, I immediately remember the Barcelona Olympics. Those were very nice ones.
Yeah, totally. So it did the thing that the Olympic Committee said it would do. is it brought tourism and it brought interest to your city. And Barcelona is now one of the top 5 destinations in Europe. It's actually number 4.
Wow.
Yeah, after that. So people look to that and they're like, well, if it did it for Barcelona, and LA was another really successful one in 1984, and LA went the other route. So LA was already a big city. They're already very well known. And what's interesting about the LA ones is they actually made a profit. They made $225 million off of the Olympic Games because they already had the infrastructure in place. So they didn't have to build too much. They already had the stadium. They already had the ability to host an Olympic Games.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I always thought that they only put them in places where they already had lots of equipment and were ready to rock.
Absolutely. And the other smart thing that LA did was they funded most of their costs through corporate sponsorship. So there was like the McDonald's arena, for instance.
I remember that too.
Yeah.
I remember lots of corporate stuff all around it.
Yeah, and people making fun of it, but hey, you know, that's how they made money.
You know, people talk a lot of mess about corporate sponsorship, and I'm sure that I have too in my time, because it feels like, oh, I'm associated, I'm co-signing their nonsense. But really, especially my artistical folks out there, take corporate money for doing what you want to do.
Right. If
I mean, it's up to you if you want to take.
Do.
Well, I was gonna say it's up to you if you want to take corporate money for you doing what they want you to do. That's all on you.
Right.
But feel free if they're like, "Yo, this thing you already doing, I want to put some money and slap my logo on it." It's perfectly fine to let them try to osmosize your cool. It's not gonna work, so don't worry about it. And then they will be paying for a thing that you get to put on for folks that you don't want to have to force to pay for stuff.
Yep, exactly.
I'm down with corporate sponsorship.
That's how LA did it in 1984. So those are probably two of the most successful examples of how the Olympic Games brought prosperity and tourism and notoriety to
But the Olympics
countries.
been going on since like negative BC.
I know.
How you give me 2 examples? That's terrible odds. Olympics?
Yeah, and well, the thing is, I feel like in recent years, from what I've seen, it's just gotten more and more expensive to actually fund and put together an Olympic Games for a city. So for the Sochi Games, the Winter Games, which was fraught with corruption.
I still don't even know where that is.
That was a mess. I know, right?
Talk about on the map. I couldn't pick out Sochi. Well, that one was like widespread reports of actual. I mean,
corruption.
It's crazy Russia, but like voting scandals. I mean, just like this year there was this boxing. Yes, there was a boxing scandal.
Oh my gosh!
Where this dude who clearly lost. They found evidence that
Rio?
they'd bribed them.
Oh my gosh! Well, there's
like even the competition part, which is supposed to be like we're spending all this money
so you can be pure.
Which is what I like about pro sports when they talk about the love of the game and all that kind of stuff. They can freely do that because they're freaking millionaires,
right? They're like, you're paying me for this, so I'm just gonna live my life.
Yeah.
You don't need to take any like back end deals or sideways things. It's true,
right?
You don't need to endorse anything. You're getting paid already. So the Sochi Games cost $51 billion.
What?
Yeah. And just to give you a comparison, Rio cost $4.6 billion, which is still a fucking lot of money, especially for a country that is in economic turmoil. Greece spent $10 billion in 2004, and now they have all those pictures of the abandoned stadiums.
But wasn't a lot of those Sochi games talking about the corruption? Wasn't a lot of that money...
That was a lot of corruption.
Well, not just a lot of corruption. A lot of that money just got straight up scooped up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we're going to talk about that later, too, because in terms of who's willing to actually do the 2022 games, all the democratic countries were like, nah, we're out.
So it's going to be like when they had them in Germany, right?
So who does that leave,
so
right? So let's roll to a song.
2 countries going to win everything. That's going to be great.
Let's roll to a song and talk a little bit more about how the Olympics... I want to spend some time talking about what the economy is like during the Olympics, because you assume that the economy at least goes up during the Olympics, and then what happens when the Olympics leave and they're over? What happens to a lot of these countries that host them, or these cities?
So we're going to start you off with a song about the Olympics. The song's called The Olympics. It's by Matt Ford. It's called Olympics. And check you in a minute. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio.
What up? What up? You talking to the athletes, spit the whole triathlon shit. She 5'6", big tits, so I spit my nonsense. Be that nigga that you dream about committing crimes with. Upper echelon timing, am I designing? No lying, I'm notoriously G. So these niggas show respect before they even meet. Fake ass niggas, I don't need those. Houses on the dollar sign, simply I don't see hoe niggas. Heard they tend to flock when they see more figure shit. I hustle with the muscle, what the fuck I look like suffering. Gold medal jacket, case you motherfuckers wondering. Effortless to win, nigga, all hail the champion. Pop that fucking Henny, though. My nigga get the haze roll. We really fucking going in, go, medal at the podium. Olympics, I show you what this mood like. We live like we got 2 lives. We really fucking going in, go, medal at the podium. Pass the Dutchie to the left side, nigga. Pass the Dutchie to the left. Pass the Dutchie to the left side, nigga. Pass the Dutchie to the left. Clean at arenas, nigga, super fresh deposit. You niggas gay as Liberace, I spit it properly. Victory gets history, you catch a whiff of cocky. And build yourself a superhuman, pray that bitch can stop me. Hobby, making niggas hate me like Gaddafi. Them bullets made them dance, said that nigga pop locking. She only want a chance, stupid nigga, stop blocking. Of course you are her man, truthfully it's not shocking. Jigging at the finish line, dusting off my kicks. Jordan 6, give the world prestige, hopes that I get rich. I admit, celebration goes, so I'm high as shit. And yo bitch, she still on my dick. I don't wanna hit, cause she's simple, which I'm not into. Control your mental, I've been rude. Super fly shit, I came to pimp you. Bunch of bad women at my venue. Which one should I get into? Pass the fucking Henny, yo. My nigga get the haze roll. We really fucking going in, go, medal at the podium. Olympics, I show you what this mood like. We live like we got 2 lives. We really fucking going in, go, medal at the podium.
And we are back. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. That was Matt Ford out of Philly.
Woo!
With the Olympics.
Have they ever hosted the Olympics?
Philadelphia? Yo, I would. We don't have enough time in this show, but I would love to just describe what the Philadelphia Olympics would be like. You ever, if y'all seen the Ghetto Olympic scene in "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker," it would be something a little like that, except probably a little more violent.
So they probably wouldn't spend that much money hosting them then. They'd save a ton.
Oh no, you would. Yeah, don't bring money into Philly.
So we are talking about the Olympics today and the economic effects of the Olympic Games. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is stadium building in general. And one of the interesting things that I found when we were researching this was that economically, there's a reason why private corporations appeal to local governments to build the stadiums, because it is not actually financially cost effective.
Yeah.
So they try and appeal to public governments to say, hey, this stadium's going to bring money to your city. So even permanent stadiums, business people know, oh, this isn't worth it for us to actually pay for putting it up.
Well, I was specifically talking about Madison Square Garden because they're such an anomaly. Mm-hmm. They're run by folks who know what they're doing and have been doing business for a while now.
Yep.
And they had the good benefit of being built up in a time when you could put your stadium in the middle of a city, and also when New York City wasn't as big as it is now.
Yeah.
And now it's entrenched.
Right. It's in there.
It's really hard to replicate that. And again, these folks are really solid with their business. They know what they're doing all the time.
Yeah. And most stadiums, I mean, you'll see why, stadiums probably are getting corporate sponsorships now.
Well, and also, shout out to Madison Square Garden for not letting us get the Olympics. It's them.
They said no.
It's not just they said no. They stopped it from happening because they had the money and the clout. The thing that was going to have to happen for New York to get the 2012 Olympics, and I remember Bloomberg was into it, at least that's what they said in the papers, we were going to have to build a football stadium on 12th Avenue, out on the water. That was going to necessitate a crosstown subway train, which
That would have
awesome.
been nice.
Yeah, there's going to be this crosstown subway train. I think it was going to be a little bit uptown.
And that is one of
That
the
was gonna
main
bring you-
promises of the Olympics is now you will have the money set aside to create general infrastructure for your communities.
Right.
It's like, oh, you need to figure out a way to transport all these tourists, which means when they leave, you'll have a way to like transport all your people.
But what were we going to do with the football stadium on the west side of Manhattan? That was going to be terrible.
That was going to be terrible.
You ever been on the PATH train after a Jets game?
Oh my gosh.
Uh-huh.
Let's not bring those people here.
Well, not even not bring those people here. It's like, how you going to get around in the city?
Yeah,
what
you're
if,
not.
What if you're one of the people who needs to drive on the West Side Highway, which is already not a fun drive to be doing?
Yeah, no, it's true. Well, and the interesting thing is that crosstown subway did get built when the Hudson Yards got put out there.
Right.
Money did bring a crosstown subway there in a way that made sense for the city.
Well, like I said about money and smarts, because MSG, they not only flex their clout behind the scenes, they put out billboards and everything. They were making sure folks knew.
Yep. So for the cities that do end up doing it, I'm sure you can already imagine, a lot of people get displaced when they're trying to build Olympic villages and stadiums, just like when stadiums get permanently displaced, like, the LA Dodgers, for instance, and that whole basically uprooting an entire community. Look at the Barclays Center.
Oh, I don't know the LA Dodgers thing, but I do know about the Barclays Center in Brooklyn.
Yeah, and how they promised affordable housing and things like that. So people get
Yankee Stadium too.
Yep.
Yankee Stadium had all sorts of chat, and I paid for that with my tax dollars, talking about they was going to have community this and garden park that.
Yep, absolutely. So you have people getting displaced. You have these big stadiums getting built that may or may not continue to be used and most likely aren't. These athletes' villages, this transportation that all leads to places that people either got displaced from or they're not actually going to go to after the Olympics.
Yo, if you take the fact that everyone loves these sport things, they sound like public funded scams, right?
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Because it's straight up people being like, yo, this is this thing that I like to do that has no real social benefit, but we've convinced folks that there's great social capital to being an athlete and being Olympic people.
Right. Well, and at the very least, tourism is up. Even if you displace all these people for 2 weeks, people are visiting your city, they're buying your stuff, they're going to your thing. And the funny thing is, though, it's up to see the Olympics, but it's not up to see anything else.
Well, because the whole thing sounds very fake. And even the money on it, you may have a number of people there, but the amount of money you getting per person, and it really seems like you're getting more people talking about you than you're getting people to come to you and care.
Right. Well, and
what Sochi is now because of
and you have feelings about it, but you're not going to Sochi, especially after how those games were run. Yeah.
I'm not going to Salt Lake City because of the Olympics.
No, definitely.
Hopefully,
not.
people are going because of Book of Mormon. I hope that's the thing that's happening.
Yeah, totally. Well, and there's actual stats that prove that tourism is down everywhere else. Like in London, they actually had to suspend performances of Sweeney Todd during the Olympics. The British Museum received 480,000 visitors that year, when previously they received 617,000 visitors. So people are going to the city that's hosting the Olympics as sports fans, not as people who are interested in seeing the city.
I mean, how many soccer hooligans wanted to go to the Globe to see some Shakespeare?
Right, exactly. So there you go, and that is one of the driving things that the Olympic Committee says is like, this is a great thing about the Olympics. People will be in your city. People will be spending their money.
Well, there's also so much. I mean, even as a tourist, I say that, and I'm like, that's unfair. There's plenty of sports fan folks who love all sorts of everything.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to your city for the Olympics have so much going on and so many events, and I would feel like I was cheating myself if I spent, as a tourist, if I spent all this, because I'm spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'm spending, and it's a big trip. So if I'm not seeing as many sport events as possible,
then why are you there?
Right.
Totally. You go to London another time to see the museum.
Right. So you're not gonna have the energy or time to see the museum.
That's not what you're there for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the real question is too, so the museum's not getting visited, right? But what about all the hotels and the restaurants and things like that, and the local economy and there's this Matheson guy. He's a Holy Cross professor, Victor Matheson, and he did a full study on all of this around 2004, actually, so a while back. And a lot of other people have been talking about this since then.
Well,
but
it's been the last decade that everyone's been questioning the Olympics.
Right, and the viability of it. And he has this great example. He calls it the hotel example. And basically, there's 3 scenarios that he lays out for hotel business owners for what they're going to do to the influx of tourists. So the first scenario is they sell 25% more rooms, so they hire 25% more people. The second scenario is they sell 25% more rooms and they decide they don't need to hire more people. They'll just, work their people longer. And then the third scenario is they double the cost of their existing rooms and don't need to hire more people.
That sounds like what actually happens.
Exactly. So the people who really benefit are the business owners and not necessarily the labor force. So most of the local economy, yeah, I know, right? Most of the local economy is actually not benefiting from the Olympic Games, and it might even be a detriment to them. And so it doesn't actually add to the economic health of the labor force, which I feel like is one of the big pushes of this is going to boost your economy. How can you boost an economy when...
It's like the whole point.
Yeah, exactly. When your labor force is not benefiting from it at all and potentially getting screwed. And then the real people who make money from the Olympics are the multinational companies who are there anyway and who have the big pockets, who have the sponsorships, who can get the attention.
Which is why you take their money when possible.
Yes, exactly.
They're getting money whenever they possibly can.
Yeah. So keeping that in mind, I mean, this is how, if there was any bid for an Olympic Games to come to your city, you as someone in the labor force who's not a business owner who owns a hotel or owns a restaurant or can provide a service directly to the tourism crowd, you are most likely not benefiting from this. In fact, you're probably working longer shifts. You're probably having to deal with more people than normal. So your shifts are going to be harder. And you're not getting paid more for it.
Weird younger thing. When I was a kid, I thought the Olympics, when you're younger, you think things are just things because they're things. And, everyone just does it because they do. And I always felt that the Olympics were something that maybe you bid on, but it was like an assigned thing.
Right.
And it was mandatory. Not only was it mandatory.
That's interesting, yeah.
It was because we needed it.
Right.
Societally.
It was like a public good.
Well, and not just a public good, but it was something that a city was sacrificing.
Ah, yes.
Even as a little kid, I probably didn't think of it like hardcore, like Hunger
No, I
Games type
feel
of
that
sacrifice.
though, because that's what it feels like. Is like you're giving up your city for 2 weeks. You're putting all this money in there to have people influx in your city for 2 weeks, throw a bunch of crap on the ground, build a bunch of stadiums, and then they leave, and you're back to where you were before, but with less money.
And mind you, if we had no professional sports, I would completely understand why it was a public good and necessity, so we didn't riot every few years. Our young and athletic rich kids could do something.
Yeah, because they're struggling so hard right now, right?
Yo, that's the next thing. I don't want to even talk about this, but when you realize that most of the folks who are in the Olympics, it's expensive. Even these sports that don't have a lot of equipment, it's really expensive to be an Olympic athlete.
Yeah,
so
it
then
is.
When you realize that most of the Olympic Village, most of these shucks kids that you're rooting for have been getting financially taken care of really well for a really long time.
Most of their life. It's true.
And then the cost of the thing ends up falling on the entire city. So it feels like yet another situation. Oh, and the city and the public also paid for most of the structures. Oh, and the city and the public are also the ones who are going to it, from other cities and places. So it feels like yet another situation where we've created a quote-unquote, those are scare quotes, public good that exists solely for the fun of the richest folks.
Pretty much. Oh, wow, the Olympics. I guess we didn't really watch them this year.
Well, I feel like that's why I've been fading a bit out of it.
Yeah.
Socially, I feel way less connected.
That's true. As a kid, I loved watching them.
Well, remember, we're mad xenophobic as kids. We hate everything that ain't us. So
the Olympics is a celebration of that.
What, you other country?
Yeah, we are gonna run faster, swim faster, jump higher. I mean, and the other aspect of it
Defeat
though.
Nazis. Remember?
Oh yeah, there's the
Historic-
patriotism.
Well, historically, there's so much great symbolism.
Yes, it's true. And I mean, in that vein,
Tommy Smith and Juan Carlos, all that type of
yeah,
stuff.
we talked about government corruption and how it really was a huge part of the Sochi Olympics, but
It's not an anomaly, even though
it's not.
Russia's crazy.
Right. I mean, with this much money floating around and government officials having their hands in the coffers with the sponsorships and, raising taxpayer dollars and spending taxpayer dollars, that's just bound to happen. That's just part of it. And so, especially in countries where the democratic infrastructure isn't that great, or there isn't a democratic infrastructure present, this is where it can get really scary and really dangerous.
Well, like China. China was scary and dangerous.
Oh,
folks.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think they just won the 2022 bid.
Oh, well, good. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you, China.
Yeah. Way to go, right?
Which city? I guess it doesn't
Beijing
matter.
again.
Beijing? Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, that's the next thing. I thought you didn't like repeat cities.
I mean, everyone else backed out.
Nobody else wants to do it, so they had to go with their backup venue, huh?
Oslo was the last democratic city left, and they backed out.
Well, and Oslo did the Olympics recently, too.
Oh, did they? Oh, yeah, they did.
yeah.
I think so, yeah. But, yeah, so the government corruption.
Yo, man, people who are getting old, did you ever imagine that the Olympics would be running out of new cities to run their thing in?
Right. Well, and that's, I feel like when it's time
Go
to
Poughkeepsie
acknowledge,
or something.
it's time to acknowledge that it's gotten out of hand. It's gotten out of hand. The costs have gotten out of hand. The control of it has gotten out of hand. And look, I mean, let's talk about
the scope
first.
in general.
Yeah, totally. I mean, let's talk about first, before we jump into that, why people do it in the first place for the after effects of the Olympic Games, right? Like the afterglow, like knowing, like, again, like putting your city on the map, and what is the perception of the city afterwards? How do people feel about, like, Sydney's a great example. Right. Another great example, similar to Barcelona, of a city who did benefit from the Olympics in that people, it was a great Olympics. I remember that one. And people, the city of Sydney really benefited from those Olympic Games and people's perception of Sydney and Australia in general.
Man, these are such tiny tangential benefits. You're talking about billions on billions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of people in each situation, and you're like, yeah, I like Sydney better.
Yeah.
That's the benefit you got out of it.
Yeah, it's true.
Man, you're putting in a lot for this.
Yeah,
kind
for
of
this
small.
perception.
And again, for the people who really don't care about athlete stuff, they're never going to care.
It's not small in the sense that if that positive perception leads to more tourists, like it actually did for Barcelona, that's huge.
Right, but you guys have listened to us talk about this. This sounds like a lot of, okay, so what I'd like you to do.
This is an investment in your city.
Yeah, exactly. This is an investment in yourself. I'm going to need you to spend the money to make people understand who you really are. And you're going to have to spend money for people to see that. And once they see that, then they will start spending their money on you.
Yeah.
The whole thing, it's like, what we're giving you is exposure.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Man, how is the Olympics a rap battle, man? Showcase contest for your ring having behind.
It's so interesting just because from the spectator standpoint, like from my end of it, I don't really remember the city or how I felt about the city so much as I remember what happened in the Olympics. Like, I remember Carrie Strug and Michelle Kwan.
And you remember a couple of names, but the percentage of names you remember even is so minuscule compared to how many exist. What you remember is the brand.
Yeah, totally. And even now we're like, oh, was Oslo in the Olympics? Oh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe, like we don't really remember.
It just made me sad to realize that that's really just what the Olympics are.
Yeah.
They're a brand.
They're a brand. It's true. They're a brand. Oh, there you go. Revelations on Brunch and Budget.
We should be talking about the
Dialect's
Olympics.
face was just
it's
like, he paused for like a good solid 2 seconds.
Well,
and just-
you remember, like, athletes, you'd be like, yo, I don't want to be in a professional sport because I'm trying to stay pure and keep my
Right.
amateur. And in your head, when you're like 7, you're like, yeah, this guy who's an athlete or lady who's an athlete, I don't know how they making money to eat, but they do that because all they
love
do
the
is work
sport.
out and do their sport.
Oh, yeah.
They just run all the time.
They run all the time.
He works as a courier in between Olympics.
Yeah.
He's the best.
Yeah.
Usain Bolt is the best courier in Jamaica or something. That's like, that's the type of thing that you get in your head. And I don't want to say fantasy because it's not that deep, but the perception that we have is so innocuous and so simple and feels like it's part of the fabric of life.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
it's frustrating how manufactured that is.
Yeah. Way to go, Olympics. Here we go.
Fronting on
So
us.
we should jump to a song.
Let's do a song.
And then let's talk about, after the song, what the controversy over the 2022 Olympic bid is, why countries have been dropping out. If you haven't, that's what we've been talking about this whole show, is why countries are dropping out. And what's the alternative? Do the Olympics need to go away? Is there another option? So we'll talk through that stuff too.
Does there need to be an alternative? Can't you just not?
That is an alternative.
Oh, no. You're right, though. 'Cause, like,
Yeah,
folks,
but people love the Olympics.
Well, and people need the
So-
stuff. We'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk.
We'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk. We'll play some songs. Before that, I'm going to play, the song is called Technology from his album Olympic Gold. Great Boston MC, educator, all-around great hip-hopper Kabir. We'll check you in a minute. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio.
Technology, the undeniable monster. Always evolving, development is constant. Technology, you better learn how to use it. Infuse it with new ideas, but don't abuse it. Technology, the undeniable monster. Always evolving, development is constant. Technology, you better learn how to use it. Infuse it with new ideas, but don't abuse it.
You gotta keep on learning in this rat race. Don't let technology pass you by. It's always changing, better keep pace. Evolution is something that you just can't deny. The world is always changing, inevitably through time. Constantly rearranging. Get on board or get left behind.
Some are just scared, they say it's too confusing. Afraid of the unfamiliar, ultimately losing. Others have been all up in it for a minute. Always looking for the next thing, it's never finished. Some are in between, a reality and a dream. They look at technology as the key to making cream. But if that's the case, they better re-up like a fiend, cause it will all be outdated by the next big machine. So I won't get swept up in the next new gear. I'ma try to master skills with what I have right here. And before I get caught up in the next big fad, I'ma focus on learning what I already have. In this consumer culture, they know how to feed on your love for what's new and your insatiable needs. So think about the cutting edge and what it really means. Learn your craft or all those gadgets aren't as cool as they seem. Technology, the undeniable monster. Always evolving, development is constant. Technology, you better learn how to use it. Infuse it with new ideas, but don't abuse it. Technology, the undeniable monster. Always evolving, development is constant. Technology, you better learn how to use it. Infuse it with new ideas, but don't abuse it.
You gotta keep on learning in this rat race. Don't let technology pass you by. It's always changing, better keep pace. Evolution is something that you just can't deny. The world is always changing, inevitably through time. Constantly rearranging. Get on board or get left behind. You gotta keep on learning in this rat race. Don't let technology pass you by. It's always changing, better keep pace. Evolution is something that you just can't deny. The world is always changing, inevitably through time. Constantly rearranging. Get on board or get left behind.
And we're back. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. That was Kabir with Technology from his album Olympic Gold. I like the technology one because I noticed as technology has improved in life and stuff, the Olympics have gotten more and more complicated and more crappier.
Yeah.
I was making the joke that back in the days, the original Olympics, it was just like them naked in a big stone arena, and folks loved it because they were doing the thing. And people talk so much about the purity of stuff.
Yeah.
And man, it's gotten so next to impossible to pure any sport. I was reading about what the new ways of getting people to cheat in as being athletes.
Yeah.
And you know about the blood stuff?
No.
This makes so much more sense. Rather than putting an actual drug into you.
Oh, I do know about this.
What
This is
keeps
what
you
Lance
having more
Armstrong
energy?
did.
Well, not just Lance, but
a lot of people.
Even like Phelps kind of did this in a legal way that you're gonna find hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
No, he did it in a way that was legal.
Yeah.
People putting more oxygen in their blood makes it, if you got more oxygen in your blood, you can do more. So people are doing this in a lot of weird ways. One, there's the Lance Armstrong thing where people are taking blood that has had higher concentrations of oxygen, your
and
own
doing
blood.
a blood transfusion.
Yeah,
basically.
and transfusing yourself, which it's weird, but it's not exactly drugs. Craziness.
It's enhancement. I
Well,
guess.
and other people.
That's how you can't detect it, though.
Well, the legal version is cupping. You know cupping?
Oh,
You had this.
yeah.
Pam had a leg injury, and for helping her leg heal,
It's an Eastern medicine thing. Yeah, it's really crazy. How do we get talking about cupping?
I'm just
I
saying,
love
because the reason
Yeah.
that it works, what it does for you, it makes your blood vessels pop.
Yeah.
Not
Sure.
like pop out into the space, but like it oxygenates
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. That's crazy. I love it.
So yeah, technology has completely changed everything that has happened in the Olympics.
Absolutely.
You got your people who would normally be in the Special Olympics because they lost a foot, but now the
they
robot
can
foot
run.
is better
Yeah.
than the human foot. So what are
Yeah.
you going to do with that?
It's true. Well, and there was this video actually going around about how the people are literally flipping more, running faster. I think they said that one of the famous Olympians in 1936 would have come in like 40th place or something, or 8th place.
Well, yeah, considering the way that
Yeah.
we've gotten our nutrition down to your
Everything's
nutrition
a
and workout
science now.
is just for this specific thing. You're not like a great athlete, so you're a great runner or jumper. If you're jumping, that's all you
That's
can
all
do.
you do.
You're like a rabbit out there, and
That's
like
all you do.
you
It's
don't
crazy.
Can't even walk. Just jumping everywhere.
It's so true. So with technology does come, and it's funny because that's a whole other industry in itself, right?
But the whole thing's like they've converged together so well.
They have. So
And I think that it messes it up.
a little bit because in terms of purity and in terms of like actual like human ability.
In terms of something, we keep using the word purity, but I think the word we really need to be using is public.
What do you mean?
The Olympics feel like something that's part of the public.
Uh-huh.
We put money to sponsor and help and do little bits because it's really ours.
That's what it's supposed
People
to be
really
like.
rally around whenever there's an Olympic athlete from their community and things like that.
Absolutely.
That's always been a thing. And I think that's the technology has helped us separate our connection from it. As we've been able to see more of it and get more cameras in there, it's felt a lot less like ours.
Right. That's so ironic too, isn't it?
Right?
That we see more of it. Well, I feel
It's
like
why we're questioning it now, because before we wouldn't even have been like, what do the Olympics cost? We'd have been like, whatever, we win in a what?
Yeah, exactly. We're not. Yeah, we're basically like opening up the hood, and we're seeing what's going on. And as cities see what's going on, I mentioned earlier that all the Democratic cities have dropped out of the 2022 Olympic bid.
And she means cities that practice democracy.
Yes.
We're not talking red or blue state here.
No, we're not. No. Yeah, I mean, Boston was a big one where its citizens actually protested and said, do not bring the Olympics here.
And
That was a
Boston
recent
loves
one.
sports.
They do. They're huge sports lovers. But one of the points that someone made was like, we already have a ton of tourists in the summer. We're not looking for that. That's not what we need. And then to have to build infrastructure for the Olympics to do that, we're not that city.
Yo, imagine you was trying to visit colleges.
Yeah.
Got all these athletes running around canoeing up and down the campus.
Yeah, right? So Stockholm was a city that dropped out. Munich.
And they're always trying to get people to stay there.
Krakow,
Get
Poland.
it? Stockholm syndrome? No?
I get it. Yeah, I mean, for them, the idea of using taxpayer dollars to build these stadiums just didn't make sense for its citizens. So basically, the two countries that were left were China and Kazakhstan.
The countries that care the most about their citizens.
Yeah, Exactly. So the reason this is scary
Yo,
is...
Kazakhstan is like, man, anything to get that Borat out of people's heads. We want to
we will run the Olympics.
whatever,
goddammit.
y'all. The Olympics, the Super Bowl. What can you bring here?
Oh my gosh, it's true. Oh my gosh. But so that's the scary thing though, right? Is we talked about the corruption in Sochi. And that is very much, a communist state. And China is very communist. And
Well, I wouldn't say, Russia's some whole other thing these days.
I
that,
guess
that communist
yeah.
thing, that's the old dated
Yeah,
Russia.
but the corruption is pretty easy to pull off in Russia when it comes to government.
Oh yeah,
corruption.
no,
Yeah,
the government's
yeah.
a mess. But I was just, actually, I'm not quite sure what Russia calls itself. I feel like they call themselves a democracy.
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck they doing over there. It's just-
And also,
crazy.
I misquote. Oh yeah, so Beijing is going to be the 2022 Winter Olympics. They beat Kazakhstan by Almaty, Kazakhstan by 4 votes. And this is what's scary about it is basically it's 2 autocratic political countries that are ready to take advantage of their people.
I remember last time China had the Olympics, they put out a thing saying, feel free to protest.
Yes.
But if you protest, please contact the government. And I think it was something like 15 groups contacted the government to let them know they were going to do some protests, doing it right.
Yep.
And then they rounded them all up and jailed them.
Yep, pretty much. I mean, these are countries that have presidents for life. They're dictatorships.
Well, even Russia, they were doing I forget the details, but they were doing crazy things during the Olympics. Every time there was some headline popping up, it had nothing to do with so-and-so did a triple Lutz.
No, I don't know anything that happened in the Sochi Olympics. I know a lot that happened in these summer ones, actually.
Man, yeah, I could not tell you who won a thing.
I don't know who won anything in those Winter Olympics.
Because that's all you heard about was crazy corruption.
Crazy corruption, things falling apart, no snow. That was another thing. They probably shouldn't have gotten the Winter Olympics based on their actual weather in the winter.
Can I prime you for a question? Because maybe it's not time for it, but I want to get the question out there before we end up out of time. We got so much stuff that we could
I know.
we could talk about.
What's the question?
Well, we've been building up all this stuff. We were talking about why, in terms of money, this is no good for folks. In terms of tourism, all these things, all these practical reasons why it's not great. But we always keep bringing up the social good. And there is a social good to worldwide athlete things. They're a great metaphor for other stuff, and it's a way to get our xenophobia out and deal with it in a safe way. But do you think, and we answer this, I guess, at the end of the show, but do you think that we've ruined, we might as well include us in it too, because whatever.
Yeah.
We've ruined the social good of the Olympics, and it's a wrap? Because I don't feel that in my heart when I think about or hear or see the Olympics.
That we've ruined the social good yet?
Well, I don't feel like it. I don't feel the social connection.
Oh, you don't anymore.
It doesn't. Yeah, we were saying, it doesn't feel like ours. Do we think that have we ruined that part of it? Because it still should be technically worth money if it does keep the masses satiated, right?
Right. Well, and if it promotes this idea, like you said, the getting your xenophobia out and meeting people outside of you, and rooting for people because they're humans and not because they're from a certain country. So many stories even came out of this Olympic Games of runners and athletes who were from different countries and triumphed. There was a Syrian refugee who, won a gold medal in swimming.
Which feels like the Olympic story, but the Olympic story is less that person whose name I don't know and more that guy whose name everybody knows.
Fucking Ryan Lochte.
See, I didn't even want to put it out there. Who
You're
went
right.
and did some nonsense.
Some stupid shit, yeah.
Like I'm saying about it not feeling like ours. When Jesse Owens went to Germany and kicked everybody's behind, people of color and people of every ethnicity in America felt like you did this for us. See, this is me. This is an extension of me doing that. Now, yeah, we know that there are a lot of them are rich kids and things like that, but it doesn't mean we can't be connected. But it feels like these are the kids
that get the headlines.
Well, no, that are doing it. In my head, as like an old guy watching the Olympics, I'm like, oh, it's all these little rich kids doing whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder too if the Olympics are something that are a thing of the past because of social media, because there's so many eyes on it, because of how technology has given us the ability, like you were talking about earlier, to really see what's going on behind the scenes.
Oh, man. So you telling me that the Olympics have always been garbage and now we could just see the nitty-gritty? Oh.
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
I feel like that the Olympics possibly, and this is just a theory, but have become a way for people to end up getting headlines instead of being an athlete, because that's what gets attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's the case, or that has always been the case necessarily. I think that the sensationalism and the fast news and the need to generate news on a daily, hourly, minute by minute basis has kind of made the Olympics just another reality thing.
Word.
I don't think it's always been like that. I don't
So
wanna
it's
crush
less
your
the
childhood
event
dreams.
and it's more the filter.
Yeah, exactly.
The filter is exacting and demands something of you that other Olympics weren't being demanded.
Yeah.
And they cracked under that strain because they're not built for that.
Yeah, because if Ryan Lochte was in the 1992 Olympics and did the same thing, we would have heard about it on the news and then moved on. But now everyone wants to create a meme or write a joke about it or post it on Facebook.
He seems to be symbolic of the people. And I feel like if it happened in 92, it would have been an anomaly to us. And we would have even had, like, I feel like they would have had their PR. This is what has me worried. They would have had Kerry Strug and them be like, I denounce him. We didn't party with that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I guess that this begs the question, like, what are the alternatives, right? So there are some theories floating around out there about how this should be done. There's two popular ones. One is maybe we should just have a permanent place for the Olympics.
Like
Maybe
Athens?
the Olympics. Yeah, no, that is actually the number one suggestion that I've seen
Right.
is like maybe the Olympics should always be in Athens, and then all the Winter Olympics should always be somewhere that's always cold.
Yo, Greece, you would dig that, right?
Yeah.
They need
yeah.
the money.
I mean, there's other problems that come with that people have brought up. Like, if the Olympics only happen every 4 years, what the hell are those structures going to do for 4 years? Who's going to maintain them?
More Greek theater.
There you go. There you go. Just MSG it, right? Madison Square Garden it up.
Yeah. I was thinking more Aristophanes, but okay.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, using it like that. You
Yes.
know what I mean. And then the other option that someone is floating around is to spread the Olympics over a few cities in a country. To have them in places where the facilities already exist. And, you know, like, even the Super Bowl, like, happens in a football stadium and only happens in a city that has a football stadium.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Well, and the Super Bowl happens in the same few places.
Yeah.
Because they don't rotate it to all 30 NFL teams.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, yeah,
because they just did it in San Francisco.
Yeah, and they never are ever going to do it in Buffalo.
Right.
They only do it in the warmer weather spots. So
That makes sense, yeah.
Right, which, I mean, it all makes sense.
'Cause it's
And
February, yeah.
They keep it to spots that they have control over, and it's a really limited number.
Right.
But there's enough that it feels like a little variety.
Yeah. I mean, granted, the tough part about doing that with the Olympics is there's no center. How can you travel to see all the sports as someone who's a spectator?
Man, they tried to do that with WrestleMania one time, and it was no good.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
come on now.
And then, I mean, your alternative was like, do we still need the Olympics? And I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I feel like the Olympics do something outside of the monetary and economic gain. And I don't know if they're still doing that, but I do think that theoretically and how we've seen it in the past, they do bring countries together, and there is a social good aspect that it's hard to put a dollar value on.
Theoretically, I feel you. I don't know how much of that is still in practice.
Right.
And, I mean, to be real, we have so much access to so much content. I don't think that we'll fall apart as a society without the Olympics. I think whatever need we have, we can watch,
Something else.
American Ninja Warrior or whatever.
Right, right. So is the Olympics just something that is a thing of the past? It was something that we needed before. Or, is it something where we need a good example of how the Olympics should be run in today's modern world? Because I don't think anything has changed except for it's gotten more expensive,
Yeah.
And so that's the real question, right? Which we can't answer in an hour, but hopefully we gave you some food for thought. Whether or not you enjoyed the Olympic Games, let us know what you think. If you would like if you have an argument for why the Olympic Games should be in your city, we would love to hear it. So, and if you are listening on iTunes, please do us a favor and leave us a comment, leave us a review, subscribe. It helps other listeners find us. Shout out to Pink Hand Grenade for leaving the first review. Thank you so much. And we will catch you next week.
Yeah, we're going to catch you next week. I got a new rapper for you. Not necessarily a new rapper for you, but his name is J New.
Oh.
And he's got a song called Olympic O's. It's not what you think unless you know what it is you think. And we'll check you next week. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. Peace.
You don't know what the fuck to do. We're trying to figure out. Your boy J New, ayo, so don't act like your shit's too cool. I'm not the only scrub in this club filled with tools.
It's so nice outside, I wonder why I grow my dank indoors. DEA on my back, like we're both engaged in war. Who they trying to take me for? Not connected to a cartel, I just like getting lit before my daily chores. Besides the selling harder drugs at bartels. And Balco for lifting up these barbells. Physician see me sick, starts thinking to himself, new car would smell so nice if he gets me back twice with the bad advice. Might cop the Tesla S-Class, pass the X up to the white. Pick 'em reaction over prevention is back in a heavy price. Hope I'm uninjured when uninsured. I roll the dice. Legalize the homegrown and help me with my student loans. Politicians pimp me on phones for funds, which are frozen at the Fargo where I feel like my banker's whore. Laying it on me sweetly about a card with some fake rewards. I'm surprised I don't kick canker sores. Still superfied by a system where credit can make me warm. Fed up with the bullshit, pressure making my skull split. Feeling like a cobra just for taking the bull hit. How can I keep my peace when cops patrol and provoke shit? These dudes would probably rather smoke dicks to the roach clip. I'm trying to roast quick, hit the spliff and go to the homie spot with roller rocks and Pacifico. Stepping with the tip of toes, smoking on the elliptical, blowing out Olympicos. Perfect Olympico. Within the vintage tinted coast, I keep a ghost protocol on all y'all. Get them sprung in spring, working it out in fall ball. Might catch me at the club, breaking it down doing the Paul Wall. Or with the thick chick in a small stall, smelling like she just ate a pack of Pall Malls. My game is stained with sin and soaked in Jameson. I came to win, let the games begin. Hey yo, you don't know what the fuck to do when trying to figure out your boy J New, hey yo, so don't act like your shit's too cool. I'm not the only scrub in this club filled with tools. But I can't complain, man, I live a blessed life. Somebody's ex-girl gave me the best advice. She said I like to have sex on X with ice. I'm like, man, living in the West is nice. It's mad bills to chill here, but I'll invest the price to impress the babe. You gotta be well dressed at night. Some get stressed cause she won't give them play. Run off to LA, yo, they just don't know how to finesse her right. I was at the rave, met the babe, said pardon me, aren't you supposed to be back in the garden, Eve? She goes, my dad got mad, said I had to leave. I'm like, baby, your dad's a ski. Combat went from hand to lip, ended up hip to hip. Homegirl's grip's legit. If heaven's on earth, then this was it. Last night, while listening to Infinite, she's wise as ISIS, smoking on a raw L. The more secret she showed me, the further my job fell. We kept communication ill. Word to my bell, in the land where followers of broken laws dwell. I showed her West Coast flows, Cali's chronic crip, the Bay's best game, but still I didn't get shit. Sometimes, man, I guess that's just how pimping goes. So I stay on the low, stepping with the tip of toes, smoking on the elliptical, blowing out Olympicos. You know, perfect Olympicos. Now ride out, now ride out. Now ride out. Hey yo, you don't know what the fuck to do. Now trying to figure out your boy J New, ayo, so don't act like your shit's too cool. I'm not the only scrub in this club filled with tools.